Ron, now tell us all about it. Where did it all start?
In my flying career, you mean?
Yes.
It started at Harewood when I started to be a would-be fighter pilot and learned to fly Tiger Moths, and but the powers that be wanted me to become a navigator. So we were remustered to navigation course in Rongotai. Then we were sent over to Canada, but we missed the convoy, so we were a bit late getting there, and the navigation course had started. So we finished up at wireless school, where we did I forget how long it was now, a course on wireless operating work. And then after that, some of the boys went to England, and I went to Quebec, where I was an instructor in navigation and a staff wireless operator. After that, I was transferred to the islands and linked up with Catalina Squadrons, number 6 Squadron in the Solomon Islands as a wireless operator air gunner.
What year was that, Ron?
And that was in 1944 when I got to the islands.
Yeah.
And I spent the rest of my time there till the end of the war, in fact a little after, ferrying Catalina flying boats back to New Zealand. But we were based at 6th Squadron Halabo Bay on Florida Island, just about 30 miles north of Guadalcanal.
Yes, I know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And were you in the Dumbo Squadron there?
Yes, we did a lot of Dumbo work. In fact, our squadron had a record number of Dumbo operations, and according to the records I've read, we actually picked up 84 downed airmen from open water.
That's a very good record, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a good record. Most of our work was patrol work. It was fairly long-range stuff, and we did anti-shipping patrols, anti-submarine patrols, and one of the most interesting ones, of course, was the work over Rabaul, where we stood by while the fighter bombers went in underneath us and pounded the Japanese emplacements around Simpson Harbour.
Were you there when they lost the 8 aircraft?
Yes, I was. We were not on duty that time. We used to send one plane up at a time, and that was a night operation from memory, and the Black Cat Squadron from the American Air Force was on duty that night. The boys, as you probably know, were diverted because of a storm over their island and didn't have enough fuel to get to base.
Right.
We lost, I think it was 8 guys that night.
Hmm.
One of the interesting things we did was when we were flying, especially after the war had moved north, we didn't have to do very much flying. We built ourselves a boat and did a bit of crocodile shooting and fishing with hand grenades and things like that, and thoroughly enjoyed our lives. Our navigator was Ed Hillary, and Ed and I became very good friends. We did a bit of climbing together in the islands, and we, having built our own boat, we later acquired one from the Americans and stripped it down a bit, and we could get 40 miles an hour out of it, and we're very proud of that boat. It was a Chris Craft and a very sophisticated boat for that time.
Sounds as though you might have had an Ellison engine in it.
Well, it could have been. But the most memorable exploit we had, of course, up there was recorded in Ed Hillary's book, Nothing Venture, Nothing Win, when we were asked for some reason or other to take a young airman to church at Tulagi. And he came and woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I forget what I was then, but I seemed to be in charge of things, and wanted the Marine Sergeant, to get a boat, and Curly was sick, so he said, "Oh, well, would you take me?" I said, "Oh, heavens above, man, it's 5 o'clock in the morning." And Ed Hillary, who slept in the bunk next to me, said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well, this guy wants to go to church." He said, "Well, don't be so bloody miserable, take him." And I said, "All right." I said, "You come with me then." So he did that. We got the boat out. We were in full uniform, a pair of underpants and a hat, and tore across to Tulagi with him, put him ashore, and told him to come back in the American picket boat that went around the islands in the afternoon. And on the way back, we were between our island and another island called Tanamboga, and our boat suddenly just blew to smithereens. We don't know what had happened. We don't know how it happened, but we suspected all sorts of things, from mines to sabotage, but it probably was a petrol explosion. And we finished up in the water. We were both badly burnt and especially from their faces, and had all their hair singed off and all that sort of thing. And we lay in the water, and that is actually what saved us, because the salt water saved the burns from becoming too serious. And our own island was about 200 yards from us, but it was mangrove swamps at that point, and we knew we couldn't get through them. So we had to swim to Tanamboga, which was about half a mile away. And so we spent a lot of time in the water. And on the way there, we were both very good swimmers. We used to swim a lot. And but Ed kept passing out, and I used to shout at him and say, "Come on, Ed, get moving. I can't pull you," and all this sort of thing. And we finished up on Tanamboga eventually, and we just lay there for a while. And Tanamboga had been the scene of a pretty messy operation. There was nobody on it anymore. There was all the palm trees were smashed, and we had to walk across the coral to Gavutu, the next island. It used to be linked by a causeway to Tanamboga, but the Japanese had destroyed that. And we had to get across. Ed had taken his sand shoes off, but I'd left mine on, fortunately, otherwise my feet would have been cut as badly as Ed's. And the Yanks found us on the beach at Gavutu and took us to Tulagi to a field dressing station and flew us back, and they didn't fly us back, they got a destroyer in and took us back to Guadalcanal. We were hospitalised for about 10 days, and we recovered. And Ed was worse than I was, that he was invalid at home, but I was sent back to flying duties and had to stay there till the end of the war. So that was the most exciting experience we had up there. And,
Yes. Sounds pretty hair-raising.
yeah.
But, just as well you were in the water, though.
It
the
was,
salt water.
yeah, that's right.
That
Yeah,
would
well,
have,
that's the modern cure for burns, for skin
Yes.
burns. I've still got scars where I had the burns, and I had my eyes damaged as a result, and I got a little pension for that, which is a big help.
Mm. Oh, that's great. And then after the war, what did you came back to New Zealand?
Yes, I came back to
after
New
that.
Zealand, and I helped fly back about half a dozen planes after the war was over, and then I went into Teachers College and finished 2 years there so I could finish my degree, and then went out teaching, where I've been until I retired.
Very good. And you wouldn't change any of it for all the world?
No, we're looking back over the war years especially. They were rough years in places, but exciting years and good adventure for young people like myself and Ed Hillary in particular. And we've become very good friends, and we still keep in touch with each other. And not very often now. Ed's getting a bit old. He's a bit older than I am, and but at least once a year we correspond, and, which is not too bad.
It's something that the young people today do not, or have no appreciation of, the comradeship and that sort of thing.
That's right, yes. Well, I can remember when I started off flying with 15 in our flight, as they were called in those days. We all went our different ways, but at the end of the war, of the 15 of us that started off together, there were 3 of us left. And that was the casualty rate over Europe in particular.
Well, thank you, Ron. Do you want to tell us any more of your exploits? Or
Well, not really. There's nothing much more to say. It was the island years were tough years, but and the flying generally was fairly monotonous. But we did have our moments, and but looking back on it over the years, the memories that I have really of the companionship amongst our crew, the sailing we did with our boat, which only had sails for a start, the crocodiles we shot, and the fish that we caught, and which supplemented our diet no end, and the flying we did, which was very interesting, especially after the war when we did the Mercy flights to islands that had been occupied by the Japanese, and we had to go out and see how things were there. And the natives were particularly grateful to us for coming. I can remember on one island, Stewart Island, they were so grateful that they filled us all up with orange wine, and we had a devil of a job getting off the water again.
You were mentioning the boredom there. I was just reading the other day, a friend of mine has written a book, and it's called The Sport of Kings. It's written by a chap that was Wing Commander Arundel, and he was one of my instructors at one stage. But however, he said that flying was 90% boredom and 10% sheer stark horror.
Yeah, that'd be right. That'd be right. One of the horrific things I can remember about the Catalinas were the landings in open seas. We could land, and the plane was purpose-built for that. And we would land in the open sea, and the swells were often so bad that we'd get seasick being in a confined space, and only one person had to vomit, and it started everybody else in the crew, and the bilges were pretty foul-smelling after a spell on the water. But they were amazing planes, and getting off after a landing in rough water was bang, bang, bang as you hit the crest of the waves, and then you finally got off, and it was a relief to everybody that the plane hadn't fallen apart.
Yeah. Tell me, how many did you pick up at once?
Well, I only picked up one that I can remember. Some of the other boys, Mike Davies picked up, I think, a crew of a Liberator, but he'll tell you more about that later.
Yeah.
And but you know, we could take quite a load on the plane. In fact, we had a Fijian commander unit on the island with us, and we used to take them to various little islands where there were some Japanese, and they had to sort them out a bit. And we'd take 25 troops at a time, which was a lot. Which reminds me of a picnic we had at the inn in Rakata Bay, a Japanese seaplane base, and we went down there for what was supposed to be a picnic, and we took non-flying personnel from the station with us, and most of the crews or people on board went ashore in the rubber dinghies, but a lot of us would swim ashore. And when it came to coming home again, the engineers had to destroy a Japanese ammunition dump that was there too, and they set the charges and everything, and we got off, and we had a count up, and we found there was one pair of boots to spare, and there was somebody missing, and it turned out to be the cook, one of our cooks, who had come down on this trip. He was a nice young lad, and he had swum ashore, and a subsequent investigation indicated that he was taken by a crocodile.
Oh.
And, that was written up in the book of the Air Force casualties. You've probably read that book or seen it, where the casualties of all New Zealanders who lost their lives in the Air Force were recorded.
Mm. That was written by Martin, was it?
Yes, I think that was the name. Yeah.
Yes, I know the book you mean.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that particular article.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Right.